Hello, welcome to the European Open Briefing for Wednesday, June the 13th. I'm Rafi Boyajan, currency analyst at XM.com, and we're going to be taking a look at what's happening in the currency markets today. So the main headlines this morning: most major pairs are relatively steady following the successful summit yesterday between US President Trump and the North Korean leader. Investors are pretty much awaiting the Fed decision later today. The dollar is advancing against the yen ahead of that decision. It's crossed well above the 110 level. The euro, though, continues to retreat amid some doubts about whether the extent to which the ECB will give details on potentially ending the quantitative easing program. The pound is also low this morning. We had worse than expected inflation data, so that dragged the sterling lower, and oil prices are also down on rising output and inventories in the US. So let's get started now with the dollar. We can see dollar yen continuing its uptrend since late May. It's now trading around 110.60 level. It earlier hit a 3-week high of 110.68. Dollar index is also heading higher. It's climbed to 1-week high of 93.95. We're seeing safe haven demand continuing to ease following the receding geopolitical tensions in the Korean Peninsula, particularly the summit that we had this week between Trump and Kim Jong-un. Yen is broadly weaker once again, but that risk-on sentiment may not last until the end of the week, because on Friday the US will announce the list of Chinese products that would potentially be affected by the tariffs, the planned tariffs of up to $50 billion US dollars. That could lead to a fresh escalation of trade tensions between the US and China, especially if Trump decides to go ahead and impose those tariffs. The immediate focus, though, of course, is on the FOMC meeting. The Fed is widely expected to raise interest rates by quarter of a basis points to a range of 1.75 to 2%. But given that's already been priced in by the markets, what's going to be more important is how many more rate increases the Fed is going to announce in its latest projections, whether or not they're going to shift the total rates from current 3 to 4 rate hikes. Yesterday, we did have better than expected US inflation data. Consumer price index rose to 2.8%. That's a 6-year high, and that adds to the Fed to continue raising interest rates. Let's now turn into the euro. We can see the euro retreating from last week's 3-week high, 1.1840. There is some doubt as to how hawkish the ECB will be tomorrow when it concludes its 2-day monetary policy meeting. The Fed may decide not to announce much details about how or when it's going to end its asset purchase program. Instead, they might choose to wait till the following months to give those details. We can see the euro has now crossed back below its 21 exponential moving average, shifting to a more bearish bias. We also had negative data out of Germany yesterday. We saw the ZEW economic sentiment index falling to a 5.5-year low. And now let's have a look at the pound, because yesterday the UK Prime Minister Theresa May managed to defeat the House of Lords amendment on whether or not to give a meaningful vote on the final Brexit deal with the EU. So that would have given MPs more power to have more say on what kind of a deal the UK should have. So that's a win for Theresa May. Sterling did briefly jump high, and before that sterling had jumped higher on stronger than expected jobs growth in the 3 months to April. The jobs data yesterday out of the UK was mixed, though. We did see wage growth slowing to 2.5%, and this morning we can see sterling falling below key support around 1.3340 following the inflation numbers. We saw UK inflation unchanged at 2.4%. Expectations were for 2.5%. Coming up later today, we're going to have another vote in the UK Parliament, this time on whether or not the UK should stay in a single market or customs union. But it is looking likely that Theresa May will win this round of votes again. And tomorrow we're going to have UK inflation data to watch. And finally, looking at oil prices, we can see Brent crude in purple here has fallen to a one-week low. WTI is struggling to hold above the $66 a barrel level. We had yesterday the API report showing a surprise build in US crude stocks. The official inventory numbers will be out later today. We have been seeing in recent weeks Russia, Saudi Arabia, and the US, all of them raising output. That is also weighing on oil prices. We do have the OPEC meeting coming up on June 22nd. Expectations are that Saudi Arabia and Russia are both pushing to increase oil supply at their meeting, but there is some resistance between some other OPEC members, so there could be some surprises there, but overall the expectations are that oil supply will increase. That's weighing on oil prices in the short term. A quick look at today's economic calendar. The main data coming up later today will be US producer prices and of course the FOMC meeting at 18 hours GMT. That's it from me. Thank you very much for watching and have a great day.